Hello, everybody. Hope you're all doing well. Just realized you guys can't hear the sound, so boop, there it is. I forgot that this game runs off desktop sound. Oh well. So, I hope everyone's doing well today. Looks like we don't have the bitrate issue we had last night, thankfully. Yeah, it's all in the range it needs to be, so yeah, last night was just a bit of a fluke right at the beginning. Which, I mean, it happens. Sometimes your internet just doesn't want to cooperate. Annoyingly enough. I didn't test the connection yet. I'll remember to do that at some point. At some point. We'll see, though. So I think that might have literally just been a fluke. But enough about that. We are here for some more Fruit of Grisaia. It's been about a week or so since we've been at this, because of my usual switching of games. And when we left off, it was more of trying to survive. Amane and her basketball team classmates just trying to live after that bus crash. There's a bit of animosity between the groups now. Everyone's getting incredibly malnourished. Things are getting really tense. And when we last left off, Mr. Ochi had gone off to search for help. So yeah, that's about where we're at right now. So we're going to be continuing on from the 9th day in what is most certainly hell for them. If we're lucky, we'll get a few days ahead. Because please, this flashback is taking a while. This is like the 3rd or 4th stream of just flashback. We'll see what's going to happen. Tensions are pretty high between Kazuki and the captain of the team, because Kazuki feels themselves to always be in the right, while the captain is just trying their best, but is also not exactly suited for dealing with this kind of situation. Oi, bitrate, what are you doing? I should be fine. Just a stream of that section anyway. So we're gonna load it up, and we will proceed so long as the bitrate holds. If it's the weather that's really fucking this up, goddamn, that's pretty bad. Oh yeah, it started off with fucking rain. That's right. And as a reminder to everyone, I will, for these flashbacks and whatnot, I will be doing something of a different kind of voice to differentiate between Yuji narration and the girl's narration for these sections. So, yeah, let's just get into it.
The 9th day in the valley. The morning of Mr. Ochi's departure from the camp was, unfortunately, a rainy one. Sensei, with the exception of the immobile Hiroka-san, everyone gathered in the drizzling rain to see our teacher off. Mr. Ochi stood before us, a heavy rucksack on his back, impassive to the water running down his glasses. I felt as though I was looking at a young officer about to head off for the front lines. As a matter of fact, there had been some vaguely sarcastic jokes yesterday about making him one of those 1,000-stitch belt good luck charms the Imperial soldiers used to take to war.
What the hell's a 1,000-stitch belt? Sorry, I'm gonna have to look that up. I don't want a chance opening my browser right now, so I'll use my phone. What is a 1,000-stitch belt? 1,000 stitch belt. It's a belt or strip of cloth stitched 1,000 times and given as a Shinto amulet by Japanese women and imperial subjects to soldiers going away to war. Oh. That's it, huh? Decorate with 1,000 knots or stitches with each stitch, which normally made by a different woman, or typically 15 centimeters wide by 90 centimeters to 100 centimeters more in length. Each end of the belt could feature strings, snaps, or buttons that allowed it to be fastened around the waist. Examples lacking these were often tucked into the waist. Other variations were never worn, but may be folded and placed aside helmet liners, pockets, or packs. Okay. Okay, they are believed to confer courage, good luck, and immunity from injury to their wearers. Some Japanese soldiers rejected the belief that their symbiotic could protect them from harm, instead believing that the amulet will allow them to inflict the greatest damage upon the enemy before offering their own lives up. Damn! As a military warrior's memento, a keepsake of the women who had given it to them. Okay, alright. Keepsakes. Keepsakes, amulets, hoping for protection and whatnot. Alright, that's fair. Okay, that's like standard. Everyone gives their tokens. Like the old medieval thing of a fair lady giving a token to a knight to wishing him luck or whatnot, or giving him some kind of blessing or whatnot. It's a band of cloth of some kind, stitched or knotted 1,000 times, generally by different women. I like the sentiment. The general sentiment, that's a good one.
But no matter how unreliable Mr. Ochi had been as a teacher, everyone quietly recognized that he was now our only visible glimmer of hope. I'm on the wrong screen. Damn it. There we go. 10 members of the basketball team had survived the fall. Our belt would have come up a good 990 stitches short. Not to say that we sent him off completely empty-handed, although our gift was less sentimental and more practical. When the rain began to fall this morning, we hastily cut apart trash bags to make a makeshift poncho.
Oh, yeah, trash bags the whole time? Yeah.
These had been a virtual necessity on rainy days, especially before we constructed the toilets, so we had the hang of making them by this point. The poncho offered some protection from the rain while allowing free use of both arms. For a short time, at least, it would keep out the wet and prevent your body temperature from falling too dramatically. That said, in the end, it was a pretty flimsy thing. And on a cosmetic level, it was not only distinctly ugly, it made an irritating rustling sound every time you took a step. Nonetheless, Mr. Ochi accepted it with a sincerely grateful thank you.
では行くよ。必ず助けを呼んでくる。それまで、なんとか生き延びてくれ。
At least this guy's fucking doing something this time. Not complaining about his salami not being around anymore. Someone stealing his meat.
With those brief words, Mr. Ochi turned his back on us and immediately began to walk off. Lingering for a long farewell would have been a waste of daylight hours. Once inside the forest, the thick tree canopy would block out most of the sun's light. We knew all too well how poor his visibility would be in this rain, which would soon transform the jungle into a misty, unfamiliar labyrinth. Of course, some suggested postponing any action until the weather improved. But if we delayed over the rain, it felt entirely possible we'd keep finding excuses to put off that first step. Maybe tomorrow it would be too hot, or somebody would feel too sick. Before long, sheer inertia would glue us to our comfortable sleeping bags. Because he understood that, Mr. Ochi made the firm decision to leave today, regardless of conditions. We watched him marching bravely down toward the forest, unable to keep the unease from our faces. If we'd had little rising sun flags to flap around, he wouldn't have looked out of place in a 60-year-old photograph. But unlike the relatives of those doomed soldiers, our anxiety was accompanied by an undercurrent of guilt. We weren't afraid for our teacher's well-being. We were worried about our own uncertain future.
先生、大丈夫かな?
I don't know, he's probably not gonna live, if I'm being honest.
The words spilled spontaneously out of my mouth. Sakuma-senpai, who had been standing at my side throughout the little ceremony, glanced over.
まあ正直、あまり期待しない方がいいね。
Sakuma's tone of voice was resigned, almost detached. The first to respond was Ibuki, who had been standing at her partner's side, her limbs shivering in the cold rain.
私たちの食料、半分も持って行ったんですよ。他を出してくれなきゃ困りますよ。
He took half the food with him, goddamn.
Haneda-senpai, as always scratching vigorously away at the bandage on her forehead, gave a little snort of laughter at Ibuki's words.
あれでも一応大学時代はテニス部だったんでしょ? 体力はあるんじゃないの?
Next in line stood Komori-san, her miniature dog's face peeping out from the neck of her school uniform.
どうしてテニス部だった人がバスケ部の顧問をやってるんでしょう?
Yeah, good question. They're kind of very different sports.
At Komori's other side, Sakurai was pressing her hands against her stomach wound, bending over slightly to shield it from the rain. As the conversation seemed to be moving neatly down the line, she tentatively opened her mouth and spoke.
大学のテニス部って要は女の子目当てのナンパな男子が集まる部でしょ? 冬はスキー部になったりする感じの。
Wow, you're really gonna call him out there, huh? What if they're joining the tennis club to, you know, hit on guys? There's a thing. I'm sure there's a lot of yaoi out there of your tennis club members getting to know each other really well. I mean, look at the live-action adaptations of Prince of Tennis. They only ever hired the good-looking boys. The really good-looking boys. You trying to tell me there wasn't something going on? Yaoi will kill everything. A lot of people like their yaoi. And a ski club, just Flanders. That's all I can think. Every time I think of skiing now, I think of stupid, sexy Flanders.
Apparently amused to hear these words from the normally meek and refined Sakurai-senpai, Kazuki chuckled lightly at her side.
その認識で間違ってないところが悲しいわね。
Oh, hi bitrate. Now you're in like real dog shit. Ooh. What is going on today? I'm gonna give this a minute, because this is pretty bad. I'm in the 600s. I don't have anything else open and running, other than, you know, Steam, but I need that for the game. I don't have closing Discord to do anything. Why is it acting up now all of a sudden? Do I have to... Might have to turn my thing on and off. My actual router itself. Might be a good idea. We'll see what happens. They're a little low for my liking. Yeah, I might just do that, actually. I might just turn my router on and off. Maybe get the thing to reset. So, yeah. Because I'm not liking this. I don't like how low it's been getting and nothing is really happening. Or maybe I'll do it after stream. Does it look like it's starting to recover? Yeah, power line is looking more and more handy at the moment. It's starting to recover. I hate that I have to interrupt stream because of all this stuff. Yeah. Just seeing this bitrate fluctuate is annoying as hell. Like that. I mean, I have it on dynamic, so it is going to change like this. But when I see a massive change, that's a problem. Let's see, what does Task Manager say? Oh, looks like it's sort of back. Alright, I think we're good. I'll keep Task Manager running in the background just so I can kind of see what's going on.
Her eyes fixed on Mr. Ochi as his figure grew small in the distance. Koide-senpai responded to Kazuki's words with an anxious frown.
本当は大丈夫なのかな。
Now that he had set forth, there was nothing more we could do either way. It was in the hands of fate now. Sakuma-senpai gave a wry little snort. Lately, her prowess at playing cards had allowed her to push most of her chores onto others, and her attitude was getting increasingly irreverent at her leisure time as her leisure time grew. Okay, got it. I'm going to read Baron.
あとはもう運布添付に任せるしかないね。分の悪い賭けだけど、賭けってのはその方が面白いよ。
Clearly irritated by Sakuma's flippant tone, Captain Sakashida finally broke her silent vigil.
遊びじゃないのよ。くだらない冗談を言っている暇があるなら、他にやるべきことがいくらでもあるでしょ。
はいはい、ごめんよ。
Sakuma's typically indifferent response earned her a brief, withering glare. After a moment, the captain turned sharply on her heel and stalked off toward her tent without another word. Heaving a small sigh at this abrupt departure, Koide gave a light nod of acknowledgement to Kazuki, then trotted off to follow her partner.
なんかさ、坂下を見てると、こういう状況でも怒鳴り散らすだけの人間がどれだけ惨めかって思い知らされるよね。彼女を見ていると、しっかりしなきゃって逆に落ち着いてくるよ。そういう意味では、いい反面教師だ。
Obeying someone simply because they outshout any voices of opposition is the height of foolishness. Over the days we'd spent here, that realization had sunk deeply into our very bodies. At moments like these, everyone's gaze would naturally settle on Kazuki. They turned to a freshman, a small girl no taller than 150 centimeters, with eyes of absolute trust. The third years among us were no exception. The vaguely rebellious Sakuma seemed to have concluded it in characteristically happy-go-lucky style that when Kazumi's around, life's a lot easier. And having essentially entrusted her life to Kazuki as a patient, Sakurai-senpai had even begun to politely address her with an honorific.
言い方はどうあれ、坂下部長の言葉に間違いがないのも事実です。寒暖じみたぶちり合いをしている暇があれば、食べ物を探しましょう。
Yeah, you all need to eat. You guys don't have any food.
There was no changing the fact we'd given half our already meager stockpile to Mr. Ochi. From today on, our meals would be all the more grimly austere? How do you say that one, actually? Yeah, looks like everything's going fine now. Austere, okay. Severe, strict in a manner of attitude or appearance. Okay, austere. Grimly austere. Cool. Even so, he'd only taken enough food for 2 days, along with 2 liters of sterilized water in plastic bottles. From a simple estimate of the calories he'd be consuming and burning, he'd last 4 days at the longest. Although Mr. Ochi had estimated that 3 days of consistent progress would bring him to human habitation, we all knew perfectly well that he wouldn't be able to simply stroll straight through that forest. But he himself was probably more familiar with that harsh reality than any of us, so we kept our silence.
ああ、この雨の中、森に入るのか。何言ってんですか。どうせ森に入ってもフラフラしてるだけで、全然働かないくせに。
Yeah, everyone's gonna be irritable because they're hangry.
仕方がないよ。私は貴族だからね。一つお願いがあるんですけど、いいですか？なんだい？言ってごらんよ。一度本気で殴らせてください。
No!
みんなのために単身森に入った越智先生に代わって先輩を殴ります。それで君の気が晴れるのならそうするといい。あまり痛くしないでもらえると助かるかな。
Oh my god.
だから髪に触らないでください。
Harshly slapping aside Sakuma-senpai's hand, Ibuki stamped off toward the forest alone. Watching her partner go, Sakuma spread her arms, turned her palms to the sky, and offered an exaggerated shrug of the shoulders to no one in particular. But soon enough, she followed without a word. All said and done, they were a friendly pair.
私らはどうする？
Fiddling with her rain-wet bandage as she brushed her hair out of her eyes, Haneda-senpai turned to address her partner, Komori. Staring down at the dog nestled against her chest, Komori-senpai answered in an apologetic tone of voice.
すみません。今日はアー君の具合が悪いみたいで。
またかよ。なんかその犬、雨が降るとすぐ体調崩すよね。やっぱあれか？
ね
湿度が高いと前髪が決まんなくて超下げなんですけどみたいな感じになんのかね。
まさかそれはないと思いますけど。
まあいいよ。今日は私が行くからさ。あんたは犬と一緒にテントで待ってな。
すみません。
Haneda set off with broad strides, apparently trying to play up her self-assigned role as the manly big brother of the household. Komori hurried off as well, leaning over the dog in her uniform to shield it from the elements. Well then, what about us? When I glanced over in Kazuki's direction, I was surprised to find Sakurai-senpai still loitering quietly by her side. When our eyes met, Sakurai gave me a gentle... something or other. I don't know. The game just kind of cut off the rest of the text. Sakurai gave me a gentle smile, then cocked her head slightly to one side, as if to say, is something the matter? Staring into her face, I couldn't help thinking she really was a good bit more beautiful than the average pinup you'd find in a cheap men's magazine.
Wow, what a compliment! Fuck, Amane! What kind of compliment is that? You're more beautiful than the pinup models in cheap porn mags. What the fuck? Sorry, Sakurai-senpai, you're too good for Hustler.
今までの恩返しもありますし、できれば食材探しに私も参加させてもらえればと。
それは助かりますけど、大丈夫なんですか？はい、
お腹の怪我ももうだいぶ良くなってきましたし。
Well, that's good, at least.
ダメよ。
でも
気持ちはわかるしありがたいけれど、今無理をすればまた悪化するわよ。桜井さんはテントに戻って広岡さんについていてあげてください。
Okay, yeah, good call. She did go and bathe herself and get her stomach wound infected, so yeah, fair enough.
つまんない。
食材探しだって別に楽しくはないわ。もともとあなたは体が丈夫ではないのだし、おとなしく私の言うことを聞きなさい。
は
ーい。Alright, yeah, you got a cold.
今の何？
It's called a sneeze, Amane. People do that.
くしゃみよ。でも今ペキュって言ったよ。一見すると欠点が少ないように見える桜井さんだけれど、どうにもくしゃみが変なのよね、この人。
気にしてるの
に。いいからさっさとテントに戻りなさい。この上風邪をひいたりしたらまた私の仕事が増えるじゃないの。
Yeah, pneumonia, not a good thing. Actually, speaking of it's Monday, pneumonia brought up a friend of mine. Don't ask. It's just kind of had crap luck when it comes to medical things. Wishing him luck on his exams. Already wished one friend good luck on their exams. Now wishing another one.
Smiling sweetly, Sakurai patted Kazuki on the head, and then immediately walked off toward her tent. That is, a large tent where Hiroka-san was waiting.
Sakurai senpai, 美人だね。そうね。性格もおとなしいし、本当に欠点の少ない人だわ。もうお腹が出るような水着は着れないと思うけれど。
Whatever. Let her do what she wants to do. Then again, we know where this story ends here. So there's not much she's gonna be able to do. I'm still kind of fearful for how all these girls are gonna die. Which, oh yes, reminder, we do have content warnings because things can get pretty descriptive and graphic and potentially triggering. So, at the moment, CW, for content warnings, Amane's route contains examples and descriptions of death and physical trauma at the moment. If for whatever reason anyone needs to step away, mute the stream, look away, anything, go right ahead. Everybody understands. No judgment if it's just something you're not comfortable with.
As she watched Sakurai-senpai walk away, her thin arms shielding her stomach, Kazuki's profile betrayed a hint of sadness. Sakurai's parents had probably been planning to bring their daughter into the world of show business sooner or later. What would they think when they saw that wound across her belly?
One pieces can look good too. Doesn't always gotta be bikinis and stuff. One pieces are nice too. Just the one piece supremacy.
An ugly, jagged, dark red gash, discharging pus faster than we could clean and disinfect it. Would they be overjoyed their daughter had at least survived? Or hurt by her misfortune?
私たちも行きましょう。そうだね。
When I stared down at the misty jungle, I could see the indistinct shapes of human beings wriggling into the trees in search of sustenance. We were stumbling in fog. Nothing to guide us, nothing but the unknown ahead, flying desperately for survival. How long would this go on? How long until fortune smiled on us? How long until we could rest? What will be, will be. There's no way to know how this will end. For now, we just need to do what we can. For now, those words were still enough to keep my feet moving, and I was beginning to feel that the limits of my endurance might be approaching. Even so, as Kazumi Kazuki made her way down the valley, the only thought in my mind was to follow her. By now, I'd stopped even considering any other course of action.
Oh, I got louder. Alright, we're on day 10. I think it was 2 weeks or so, Kazuki predicted that that's when any kind of search teams would be called off, and they'd have to, for sure, try to get their own way out.
The 10th day in the valley.
また雨だ。もううんざり。雨が降ると途端に体がだるくなる。頭が重い。テントの中にいても雨はどんどん染み込んでくるし、慢性化した湿気が原因なのか、苔だかカビだかの青臭いような匂いがますます濃くなってくる。ここ数日の雨の様子はほとんど梅雨の様相だ。今度の雨は相当にしつこい。当分やみそうもない。テントを叩く雨粒の音でなんとなくそうわかる。梢の隙間を伝って育った大きな雨粒がテントに当たる音は不規則で、ずっと聞いているとイライラしてくる。満たされない空腹もまたイライラの原因だった。もはや口癖のように、ああお腹が空いたと私が口にすれば、最近の和樹は眉を寄せる。そんなこと言われなくても分かっているわと機嫌が悪くなるのだ。それでも私が空腹を訴え続ければ、最後にはうるせえ、寝ちまえとそんなことを言い出す。ちょっと、私はそんなことを言った覚えはないわよ。私は動く必要のない時には眠るのも立派な仕事よと言っただけでしょ。やだな、和樹。勝手に私の日記を読まないでよ。
Well, you're kind of, narrating it out loud as you write it, apparently. That's on you. I can hear Ruby through my headphones. She's dreaming. So here we go. I'm gonna check on her real quick. I'll be right back. And I'm back. Yeah, she's good. She was just dreaming. She's curled up. I think it's just colder out, so she's just nestled in her crate on her bed and blanket. I love that dog so much.
読んでないわよ。あなたが日記を書きながらそれを声に出して勝手に私に聞かせていたんでしょ。
Called you out there, Amane.
嘘。
Your internal monologue became an external monologue.
自覚なし。重症ね。気をつけなさい、アマネ。まるで一人でブツブツと文句を言いながら料理をするとんかつ屋の主人みたいで気持ち悪いわよ。何それ。よくわかんないけど、人の顔を真剣に見つめてキモいとか言わんといてもらえる？へこむわ。ほら、私が捕まえたカタツムリをあげるから、これでも食べて元気を出しなさい。もうでんでん虫飽きた。っていうか、虫以外のものが食べたいよ。
It's better than nothing.
カタツムリは陸外よ。まあ、貝は虫じゃないのかと言われると微妙なのだけれど。それよりアマネ。
Kazuki pointed to her cheek with one finger, as if to tell me I had a grain of rice stuck on the corner of my mouth. After a brief moment of confusion, I brought my hand up to my face. My fingers quickly found something slimy on my cheek.
Oh, are you kidding me? Another fucking leech?
That is to say, a leech. I had grown exceptionally tough-minded about this sort of thing. Another leech wasn't going to get a scream out of me this late in the game. Carefully peeling the creature off my cheek, I held it between my fingertips with both hands, dug my nails into its body, and ripped it apart. Damn. This was another lovely side effect of the rain. The leeches had begun to find their way inside our tent. After waking up, peeling the bloodsuckers off my body had become the first part of my daily routine. First and foremost...
Jesus Christ. No. Ow. Oh.
First and foremost, I had to peel them off my eyelids. Next, the ones sticking to my neck, wrist, and ankles. The leeches had a particular fondness for these points where the body grows narrow. Other than that, they'd also go for places where the skin was thin. The back of my knees and elbows, my armpits, my groin. Oh god. or even a few that burrowed in between my toes, as if trying to make themselves a cozy little nest. The first few times this happened, we'd shriek hysterically when we woke, but after a few days, we'd lost the will to even moan. And either our bodies had developed a resistance to Hirudin, or we'd just gotten used to treating the bites, as the trickle of blood from the wounds would now stop after only an hour or so.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, leeches produce an anticoagulant to let the blood continue to flow, which is how they're able to, you know, suck so much of it. And it's also kind of why they say don't just rip a leech off, because that just... yeah, it's not great. Same with ticks. Don't just rip them off. You gotta, like... you gotta do some weird stuff with them. People say with leeches to burn them off. I think that might have been disproven now. That's also a bad thing to do. Ticks, on the other hand, a way they say, at least I was taught how to deal with ticks, is if you can get like a small knife, like even like a pocket knife from like a Swiss Army thing. You want to like put the pointed end of the blade toward their body and just kind of slowly scrape down a few times. And that'll tease their head out, and then you can just pick it off and get rid of it. Because you don't want to just try to grab it and pull it off, because that'll leave the head in and it'll keep kind of still doing its thing. Which isn't good. Ticks are no joke.
Hazuki speculated our growing sodium deficiency might be affecting the salinity of our blood, but there was no way to tell for sure. As the day crept into evening without a break in the rain, Kazuki and I headed to the large tent in order to visit Hiroka-san and Sakura-senpai. Outside, I started the usual fire under the primitive stove, made the usual thin, watery weed soup, and boiled the usual bucket of hot water. With the gruel in my right hand and the hot water in my left, I made my way to the hospital tent. It was important to remember which was in which hand, since it was no longer obvious which was the water and which was the gruel. Calling it gruel was a bit of a joke by this point. At a glance, it looked more like stone soup. Even so, since we were mixing in a bit of the rice distributed to Kazuki and me, the wounded Sakurai and Hiroka were still eating slightly better than the rest of us.
お湯が沸いたよ。ありがとう、アマネ。そこの手ぬぐいを熱湯で消毒して、広岡さんの体を拭いてあげてくれる？うん、任せて。
Kazuki didn't turn around when I entered the tent. She was steadily unwinding the yellow-stained bandages from Sakurai's stomach and removing the gauze from her wound to be replaced. We'd washed the gauze over and over in boiling water to the point it was beginning to blacken. It made for all the more striking a contrast against the yellow pus that permeated its surface. Whoa. Whoa. No matter how many times we carefully disinfected Sakurai's laceration, the suppuration wasn't showing any signs of stopping. If we weren't in this situation, it surely wouldn't have been difficult to treat. But given our unsanitary conditions and utter lack of medical supplies, we simply couldn't stop the bacteria from multiplying. Above all else, the patient wasn't getting the nutrition her body needed to fight its way to recovery. When I reached out for the dirty gauze in order to sterilize it for reuse, I noticed something squirming on its surface.
Oh! God. That's... ugh. That's never good. There were flies in there, remember that. Oh. I mean, on a plus side, they'll eat the dead tissue, but still, oh, not good.
It was a maggot. Thrashing its fat little body madly from within the depths of the pus that had soaked into the gauze, it almost seemed to be consciously trying to crawl back towards Sakurai's stomach.
こっちはいいから広岡さんを。
Oh, God.
Immersing the washcloth, a strip of cloth cut from an old t-shirt, in the hot water, I left it to soak and began to unbutton Hiroka-san's uniform. At first, she'd been quite embarrassed to be seen naked, but by now she submitted quietly without even squirming.
It's the situation they're in.
She might simply have lost the energy necessary to feel shame. Hiroka-san's chest had withered dramatically since the first time I'd wiped her clean. Her ribs stood out distinctively against the surface of her skin.
Oh my God.
And that skin was mottled here and there with small white flecks. Oh, good Christ. The small, fuzzy little spots could be dusted off by hand. At first I thought them to be something like cotton dust from her sleeping bag. But when I asked Kazuki, I learned for the first time that mold can grow on a living human body.
Oh, that's gross.
Hiroka-san was covered in pale white mildew. Ugh. Ugh.
Gross.
ちょっと待ってね。今熱いタオルで拭いてあげるから。
私もう痛い。
何？なんて？
Bit rate, what are you doing?
Hiroka's dry, cracked lips were moving slightly. I lowered my ear to her mouth.
私もう死にたい。
Oh, God. I kind of expected that. She wants to die.
大丈夫だよ。ちょっとカビが生えただけじゃん。
Scooping the washcloth out of the hot water with a pair of chopsticks, I waited for it to cool below scalding, then gave it a vigorous squeeze.
体中がかゆいの。気が変になりそう。もう嫌。
I'm not surprised.
我慢して。今きれいにしてあげるから。
I dropped the moderately hot towel against Hiroka-san's body and began to wipe. The mold came off cleanly, but underneath there were innumerable angry, swollen red welts where fingernails had dug into her flesh.
書いちゃダメって言ったのに。
The more she scratched, the more she spread the mold across her body.
ごめんなさい。どうしても我慢できなくて。
Well, I saw that just drop to 0 briefly. Yeah, it did drop. Oh, bitrate, why you do this to me? Barely an hour in. think I'm gonna try what I was about to say. I'm gonna reset my router. So stream is gonna end. I'll be a few minutes to come back, and then we'll just pick up right where we are, I think, just to maybe solve this constantly changing bitrate issue I've got going on lately. So yeah, this shouldn't take too long. Hopefully about 5 minutes, if that. So see you all shortly. Okay, we should be back now. Okay. I reset the router just to make sure. So we'll see how that goes for us now. Send message. For anyone that is happening to lurk in the chat and doesn't see that I'm back on, so they can just refresh the page. So okay, we should be okay for now. If not, I'm gonna definitely do the power line thing at some point. So I'll just end up combining these VODs together when I post it all up onto YouTube. So yeah, for YouTube squad that ends up having seeing this, that's why there's a random cut. It just feels like it's the music jumped or whatnot. I combined two together. So I'll just continue on from where we left off.
Wide-scale, unrelenting itchiness is absolute torment. No matter how firmly you're told not to scratch, you'll unconsciously claw at your body while you sleep. Oh, wow, damn it, my bitrate didn't do that. Okay, so... it's still going nutty. But I think it's holding on for now. Hiroka-san's reflexive habit had grown so extreme that we'd actually tried binding her hands to prevent this. That night, she had woken the entire camp screaming. Writhing her body against her restraints, she had scraped her body against the hard ground, crying again and again for help. So there's potentially an issue with the ISP in general. Right, then again, Wi-Fi is unreliable at the best of times. Let's see. What does down detector say? Just want to check real quick. Rooney. I mean, there was briefly a spike of people saying there was an issue, but nothing for them to say there was an issue. Okay. The fun of me being in a basement. When I wiped her body clean, the itchiness would reduce at once. She described it as almost a blissful sensation. Even so, that comfort would last an hour or two at most. Once wrapped up in her sleeping bag, the itchiness would return as her body temperature began to rise. I was now making the time-consuming trip to wipe her clean many times a day. If anything, it was bitterly sad to know there was nothing more I could do for her, no matter how hard I tried. As she spoke, tears began to run in little streams down Hiroka-san's face.
死なないから。
Wiping a tear from Hiroka-san's cheek with the tip of my finger, I reflexively brought it to my mouth. Why are you licking her tears? Hiroka-san's tears were still salty. I was slightly envious of that.
Ah! Fucking rain. Day 11 now, huh? Jesus.
The 11th day in the valley. It was still raining. It had never stopped raining. There was nothing to do but sit around shivering and wait for the weather to clear. Doing nothing all day took a surprisingly heavy toll in its own right. After 10 minutes or so of aimless idleness, you'd be seized by an anxious, impatient need to do something. Anything. But it was impossible to step outside even briefly without being drenched in the downpour. The cold rain would drain your energy with terrifying swiftness, and once you got wet, you stayed that way. We knew it was dangerous to stay in soaked clothes, but we didn't have any means to get them dry. The constant seeping rainwater had begun to corrode the thin material that made up the bottom of our tent. Lying down, even with the buffer of the sleeping mat, would leave our whole bodies sopping wet. We had no choice but to sit and wait. In the afternoon, the rain slowed to a heavy drizzle. I had just managed to get a cooking fire going when an eerie sound began to echo across the camp. Someone was singing loudly. It was unmistakably Ibuki's voice.
ついに行かれたか?
Kaneda laughed harshly, an ugly, contorted excuse for a smile on her face.
うるせえぞ!
In an attempt to end the mournful, grimace-inducing dirge, Kaneda-senpai hurled a rock in Ibuki's direction. The stone fell a few feet short, and Ibuki turned in our direction to examine it. Her face was ghastly white, her skin dull. It looked as though she had aged 20 years in the last few days. Picking up the muddy stone, Ibuki pressed it to her nose and sniffed curiously. Apparently deciding it wasn't food, she tossed it casually aside and continued her song. When the world grows warped around you, those who can't bend simply break. But watching Ibuki caterwauling idly up at the rain cloud-filled sky as if to summon the sun, I wondered if derangement might sometimes be a blessing rather than a curse.
なんなんだろうね、あれ。たまにああやっておかしくなるけど、しばらくすると普通に会話できるし、いつものブッキーに戻ってるんだよね。需要不足らしいですよ。いつかは私らもあんな風になるのかね。金田先輩、ここへ来る前、ダイエットとかしてました？あにゃ？じゃあ、大丈夫じゃないですか？
From what Kazuki had told me, Ibuki had been repeatedly subjecting herself to severe, gimmicky diets over the last few months, leaving her with chronic vitamin deficiencies. Since arriving here, that pre-existing condition had apparently worsened the effects of malnutrition on her body, giving rise to impaired brain function.
参っちゃうよね。うちの子守ももうだいぶやばい感じだよ。
Komori was still shut up in their tent, nursing her dog through a high fever. Apparently, she was feeding every scrap of her rations to the animal.
あいつの家和菓子屋じゃん。親は二人とも仕事で忙しくてめったに構ってもらえなかったみたいでさ。兄弟もいないあいつには犬が兄弟なんだよね。まあ、わかるけどさ。
Even as Kaneda spoke those carefully neutral words, Her mouth was twisted with undisguised loathing. Her true feelings were written on her face. She unambiguously hated that feverish, immobile little dog. It was of no use to her, and so she wanted it to disappear. It was as simple as that.
みんなどんどん弱ってく。このまま私らみんな死ぬんだ。
Jesus Christ.
I understood from the tone of her voice that this wasn't more than the usual gallows humor. I understood with such painful clarity that I wished she'd said nothing at all. Glancing up at the sky as the rain began to intensify yet again, I slowly picked myself up off my seat of rock. I can't take this. Couldn't we at least catch a break on this rain? It was adding insult to injury. Knowing full well that it was ridiculous, I did my best whiny preschooler impression and asked Kazuki to make the rain stop.
だから私は神様じゃないのよ。似たようなもんでしょ。
Not a god, this is a demigod. I can't stop things from happening, I can merely influence severity.
Everyone called Kazuki a witch. Well, except for the ones who called her a monster. In that case, a little rain magic shouldn't be too much to ask for, right? I mean, I knew it was idiotic, but asking was free. In response to my challenge, Kazuki closed both her eyes and exhaled heavily through her nose, as if to say, "Oh, very well then." And lifting both arms toward the sky, she spoke to the heavens. To wit, "O rain, I command you to be gone." An exceptionally half-hearted command that dissolved into an open-mouthed yawn at the end. I appreciated that she was considerate enough to play along with my nonsense. But if she was gonna bother, couldn't she have at least pretended she was taking it seriously?
No, apparently.
But, well, as it turned out, an hour or so after that, maybe, the rain really did come to a sudden stop. You had to laugh. Kazuki craned her neck back, idly gazing up at the clouds as the clouds flowed peacefully by.
何でも試してみるものね。
And spoke characteristically impudent words in her characteristically sleepy voice. Staring at her face from the side, I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. The witch theory was seemingly increasingly plausible. Not that, on reflection, I really cared if she was some sort of black magician. It'd be nice to have one on our side right about now. If I ask her to spirit everyone to safety for her next trick, I wonder what happened. Asking's free, after all. I looked over at Kazuki, debating whether to throw this new challenge at her. But before I could decide, she stared up into my eyes and spoke.
全員は無理。そう言ったはずよ。
Okay, she's got to be able to read her fucking minds at this point, unless Amane is literally monologuing this out loud. Like, for sure now.
だから、私が質問する前に答えを先に言うのはマナー違反だよ。 あなたは考えていることがすぐに顔に出るから分かりやすいのよね。
It can't be everyone. Her tone of voice was surprisingly breezy, but somehow also exceptionally firm, as if the outcome was set in stone, as if she was merely repeating an established fact. Kazuki's internal calculations must have established something very close to a 100% possibility that more of us would die in this place. I repeatedly asked her about the details of her predictions, receiving only variations of the frustrating non-answer, "If I told you, the future I predicted would change." When I finally told her that changing this future sounded like a pretty good idea to me, she coolly replied, "Even if it would mean none of us would survive at all?" And I found myself at an utter loss for words. Well, maybe not utter. There was still one old reliable that came to mind. Just random noise. You know what? Right now, I am going to quickly order some lunch. Just so it gets here in time. What do I want to grab? Itchy, itchy, itchy nose. That should be good. Oh yeah, someone's home. Figured. I'll have to check that out after. It's gonna go to the right place, right? Yep, that's the address. Okay. I'm gonna be right back. I'm just gonna see what's all going on, that's all. So, it shouldn't be too long, probably just like maybe 30 seconds, a bit at most. So, yeah, be right back.
And I'm back. Took a little longer than I thought. Just, helping to hold down sand something.
で
I'll probably end up ending this around my normal time that I usually do, about the 2 hour mark, so about 12 o'clock I'll probably finish this today. So that's gonna be in like about 20 minutes or so, which is fine.
Don't look at me like that. I'm perfectly aware that I'm an idiot. You don't have to rub it in. Even now, Kazuki said the possibility of everyone surviving wasn't quite zero. By believing in those words, I could hold on to hope. If I had hope, I could find the strength to go on. Yeah, that's right. I have to be stronger than this. But it was hard. It was very hard. A full 2 days had passed since Mr. Ochi left the camp, and as always, there were no signs of rescuers active nearby. Naturally, our teacher hadn't returned either. Is Mr. Ochi lying dead in a ditch somewhere? Maybe he's gotten to someplace safe and just abandoned us here? What do we do if he never comes back? Amid a flurry of aimless speculation, we pass the days waiting for help to arrive. They didn't come today, but they'll definitely come tomorrow. They didn't come today either, but they'll probably come tomorrow. Mr. Ochi said he'd get help no matter what when he left here. Not even half the group really believed it. But even so, somewhere deep down, every one of us was clinging to that glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, he'd save us all. That maybe grew feebler by the day, eroded by cruel reality. Even as we came to understand that waiting would only bring us a slow death, we clung to that shred of hope, piling speculation upon speculation. We built excuses out of sand. We convinced ourselves it was too early to decide. We stayed where we were, and we waited for nothing. Trapped in oblivious lethargy, we lived for nothing but to avoid death. When our stomachs growled, we chewed on blades of grass and insects. When our throats were parched, we gulped from the first puddle of dirty water we saw. Naturally, it wasn't long before our stomachs turned violently against us. Somebody said chewing bamboo charcoal might be effective against diarrhea. Within hours, everyone's mouth was stained black. We searched and searched for anything edible. As long as it was digestible, we ate it. Anything and everything. The rest of our time we spent lying in our sleeping bags, stroking our cramping, weak stomachs as we pretended to sleep. If we were lucky enough to fall unconscious, there was a brief respite from the pain.
Another day. My lord.
The 12th day in the valley. Lately, I was waking every morning from dreams of food. Walking in the forest, I come across a trailer cart with broken wheels. When I draw close and look over the edge, there's a huge cardboard box full of canned food just sitting inside. Not just full, bursting at the seams. There were dozens of cans in that box. Beef boiled in soy sauce and ginger, mackerel cooked in miso, even canned peaches and pineapples. Untucking my shirt to make a pouch, I cautiously loaded it full of cans, making sure to stay alert and keep an eye on my surroundings. If I bring all this back, everyone will be able to eat until our stomachs are bulging. What a fantastic windfall. The looks on their faces when I come back. Not to worry, we have a can opener. But seriously, What was a bite cart doing all the way up in the mountains in the first place? A moment after that doubt flashes through my mind, I abruptly realize, oh, this is a dream. Anyway, I'll just take this back to camp now. Let's all gorge ourselves until we can't eat another bite. I tried to focus on that thought, but once the first realization hit, I could never manage to fall back into the illusion. Mostly, I would wake up with a start at this point. The instant my eyes opened, my stomach began gurgling violently, and the wrenching physical pain of it twisted my face into a miserable grimace. Even if it was a dream, I wish I had at least taken a bite. When I wrapped up the story at this point, everyone would always laugh. "You're such an idiot, Amane." I'd hide half the food. I'd get everyone one can, then I'd hide the rest. I'd hide the whole stash and eat it in secret. The majority openly admitted something along these lines, and then added with clear amusement that I was probably the only one stupid enough to come skipping right back without a second thought. It was now the 12th day. 12 days we'd spent living worse than stray dogs. Even among those who had been comparatively healthy, unmistakable symptoms of weakening were beginning to appear. The soft footsteps of death creeping steadily up behind us were growing impossible to ignore. Our nerves were rubbed raw from tension, our spirits timid and fearful.
Like, this is like the worst. This just keeps getting worse and worse. And it's only gonna get worse from here. Oh yeah, everything's been pretty stable for the last minute. Which is good.
The first to be caught by our shadowy pursuer was Komori-san's pet, Akun, the Shih Tzu Alone.
Leone or whatever the hell it was.
It wasn't a durable breed by nature, and what food we had simply wasn't suitable for a dog with a weak stomach. And so, having fallen into a high fever during the days of relentless rain,
Alione
simply never opened his eyes again. He died quietly early this morning.
Pupper died.
Kneeling in front of the lifeless body, flat on its side with limbs stiffly extended, Komori-san removed the collar from Alone's neck and wrapped it around her thin wrist. That dog had been like a brother to Komori, but she didn't break into loud wails over its corpse. Her strangled sobs forced their way out from behind clenched teeth, seeming all the more piteous for it. Nobody could find anything to say to her. After a time, someone mumbled about at least giving the animal a proper burial. Kazuki immediately raised an objection.
What do you have to object about burying the dog?
食べないの?
Kazuki, what the fuck? It just died and you already want to fucking eat it? Someone I know earlier through this said, why don't we just eat the dog? Like, someone in chat had said that earlier, and well, guess they're eating the fucking dog. Or at least Kazuki wants to eat the dog. Oh my god. At least give her a little time to mourn. The thing is literally just died, and you're like, let's chop him up. Wouldn't you and survive? Ugh. I mean, yes, in a survival situation, but fuck. Also, hey Nick, how's it going?
We'd all been vaguely thinking it, but deeply ingrained social norms had kept us from admitting that even to ourselves. And yet, Kazuki had blurted it out almost casually. Yo.
Yeah, I hope your day's going good, buddy.
食べるって犬を
Pretty well, good, good. Glad.
そう、この子に助けてもらうのよ。
At Kazuki's typically cold words, every one of us sharply drew breath. Eat? Yes. There was nothing in the world we wanted to do more at this moment. The dog in front of us was nothing but a corpse. Now that it was dead, it was no longer a dog. It was meat. Would it be okay to eat a dog that died from sickness? It was Kazuki's suggestion, so presumably it was safe. But surely we couldn't start talking about this right in front of the grieving Komori-san, and this whole idea just felt so wrong. We all hesitated. The silence grew. To be honest, we wanted to eat it. But something inside us was still offering considerable resistance to the idea. Nobody could make up their own mind. All eyes settled on the last remaining formal authority figure, Captain Sakashita.
そうね。彼女の意見が正しい。
Jesus H. Christ, they're actually gonna eat the fucking dog.
From the expression on the captain's face, those undeniably callous words must have tasted bitter in her mouth. Komori-san jerked her head up as if stung, then slowly turned from side to side, looking into our faces one by one. Everyone averted their eyes from Komori-san's tearful gaze.
There's not even san at the end of that, and I already added it. Jesus Christ. I'm getting too in character, I guess.
Everyone except Kazuki, who met it firmly and gave her a small nod. Staring steadily down at those plaintive eyes, Kazuki murmured, "This is Alione's final duty."
I wish I had paid more attention when they actually said the dog's name full.
Komori-san's face crumpled as she slowly croaked out an answer.
わかりました。
Inhuman. The word was written clearly on Komori-san's face for any who cared to look. Even so, most of us let out small, involuntary sighs of relief at her surrender.
だったら虫が湧く前に肉にした方がいいわね。
But that relief was short-lived. Kazuki's words once again left us all frozen like stones. Right. If we were gonna eat that corpse, we'd have to butcher it first. There was no choice. We had to pluck the hair from the dog's body and carve it up using a knife. And of course, no one wanted that job. Again, we looked to the captain. Biting her lower lip, the captain looked in turn to Kazuki. And finally, Kazuki closed her right eye and tilted her head lightly to the left.
皆さん、じゃんけんってご存知？
Are you kidding me?
As the result of an impartial game of chance, the duty of processing the corpse fell on Koide-san, senpai. She tried briefly to resist, protesting, "I've never butchered a dog before." But of course, none of us had made a habit of carving up puppies either, so the argument didn't really hold together. As the kitchen knife trembled dangerously in Koide's hand, Captain tried offering her some rough encouragement along the lines of, "You're a doctor's daughter, aren't you?" To be honest, though, it was a little hard to grasp what that had to do with anything. Visibly... Oh, fuck. Do not... Please, no. Visibly bracing herself, Koide gripped the knife firmly in both hands and took a step forward. But in that moment, her eyes met those of the dead dog below her, and she immediately burst into terrified tears. Naturally, the gallant hero Kazuki stepped in to save the day. Taking in her good hand the punishment rod she normally used to strike the pan for morning wake-up call, she swung it down. Holy fuck!
Kazuki scares me.
Everyone gasped in shock at the gruesome act, many barely stifling screams. If I start shrieking pointlessly, maybe I'm next. That irrational fear seized us all, and the silence fell over the valley.
何?もうどこが目なのかわからないでしょ。頑張りなさい。
Yeah, now we gotta look at, a fucking caved-in dog head? Jesus Christ, Kazuki.
Meeting eyes with the dog is scary, is it? Well, we'll just crush its eyes beyond recognition. It was about as elegant a solution as blowing off your jaw with a shotgun to cure a toothache. Fair!
私がやってもいいけど、あなた、私がいなかったらどうするの？もし生き残ったのがあなた一人だったら、誰も助けてはくれないのよ。
As she spoke, Kazuki tossed her wooden sword aside, then took the kitchen knife from Koide's hands with a disdainful little snort. Everyone's got their hands full with their own problems right now. No one's gonna protect you. If you're weak, you're simply gonna die first. Kazuki might not have said it point blank, but her meaning was all too clear. We studied the ground at our feet in silence. The strong eat the weak. Men and beasts, insects and plants, all live and die by that rule. Many hissed about Kazuki's cruelty in low voices, but her powerful words and unhesitating actions left no room for open objection. Kazuki possessed not only the decisive personality of a leader, but also the ability to inspire fear characteristic of a ruler. Everyone could only hang their heads and obey.
あなた、随分と素敵な人ね。
でしょ？あなたの彼氏にもベッドで同じことを言われたわ。
Jesus Christ, this is not the time for this shit.
お肉の用意ができたら真っ先にお声をかけますから、今は引っ込んでいていただけます？
Captain Sakashita turned abruptly on her heel and stalked away without another word.
強引だな。部長泣いてたよ。あのまま喧嘩になるよりはマシでしょ。うるさい女を黙らせるにはああいうしかなかったのよ。部長の彼氏って誰なの？さあ、でも何の反論もしてこないところを見ると、 心当たりのある存在がいるのか、もしくは彼氏がいないことをバカにされたと思って二の子を告げなくなったか、そのどちらかね。
もし部長が切れて飛びかかってきたらどうするつもりだったの？
あなたなら平気で犬の頭を潰すような女に襲いかかる？
No!
つまりはそういうことよ。
全部計算していたのね。
Hey, Rob Master. Welcome back in. A nuclear explosion where frozen pizzas cooked to perfection. Shit, my brain. Oh my god. Welcome in. Hope your day's going well.
それは買いかぶりすぎよ。部長に襲いかかられる確率もゼロではなかったわ。まあ、その時は無様に殴られてみんなの同情を集めようと思っていたけれど、生き残るために犬の頭を潰す女と個人的な感情を暴走させて怪我人を殴る女、みんなはどっちの味方になるかしら。あなたどう思う？
怖い人だね、和樹。
Yeah.
そうね、自覚はあるわ。私みたいな女は男の子にはモテないでしょうね。絶対。
I badly wanted to scream. If you're well aware, how about you do something about it? But I can anticipate her answer, no doubt delivered in her best nails on a chalkboard girly voice. I'm sorry, I just can't. It's too hard for widow old me, or some such. It felt as though I had maggots crawling down my spine at the mere thought. In any case, if there's a single man in the world who'd want to go out with this woman, I'd really like to meet him. So I can get him the help he needs. And so, Kazuki cleaned and gutted the dog, reducing it to meat. We soaked it in barbecue sauce from the communal stockpile and cooked its little body golden brown. Jesus Christ. The powerful aroma of grease and spicy sauce wafted through the air. We swallowed mouthfuls of warm drool again and again. Just a few days ago, that hunk of meat had been an energetic, adorable little dog, frolicking around Komori's feet. There was definitely a widespread feeling of guilt, but the sound of sizzling meat and the smell of dripping grease were irresistibly alluring. Even those who had whispered heatedly about Kazuki's inhuman cruelty couldn't overcome their own stomachs. When the meat was finally grilled and ready to be divided, they all swarmed up with plates in their outstretched hands.
Oh my god, Nick. They ate the fucking dog. They're eating the fucking dog. I mean, whatever. Survival situation, but fuck.
I was the one who carved the meat for distribution. The rear legs looked to be the choicest and most nourishing part of the body. Lopping off one with a kitchen knife, I placed it on Captain Sakashida's plate. The second went to Kazuki.
Oh, why did we need that sound effect? Ugh.
After that, I divided the meat as evenly as I could between the rest of us. We had even carefully washed the internal organs and cooked them as well. After distributing it all, there was nothing left to do but greedily devour my share.
Oh my fucking god.
It felt like such a long time since I tasted meat. The first bite was so delicious that I went quite literally dizzy with bliss. My protein-starved tongue tingled as the animal fat slowly spread out inside my mouth, and my stomach squeezed tightly in on itself as though consciously trying to wring every particle of sustenance from the food. And of course, it was an ornamental lapdog, a toy breed. When distributed among the entire group, its body provided us with a mere mouthful of meat each. Even so, we all wept with joy at the nourishment. And as soon as the meat was gone, everyone began crunching away at the bones. Oh my fucking god. We had assumed Komori would firmly resist the idea of consuming her pet's flesh. But in the end, she bit into her share of meat like all the rest. Sniffling miserably the entire time, tears blending with the mucus running from her nose, she ate. That one mouthful of meat kept us alive for today. I don't think we'll ever forget that taste for the rest of our lives, even if we want to.
Okay, it's a new day. I'm gonna save. Just 13th day. Cool. I went from 9th day to 13th day. Cool. Swapping over. Alright. So, despite the technical issues, we got decently far. Again, we went from day 9 to day 13. Oh, it's 13 days. 13 is an unlucky number. Something bad's gonna happen today, isn't it? But that's enough of that. I will be back again about 7 o'clock tonight, and we will continue going through Kingdom Hearts 3. We started it last night, and while also having some technical issues, we still got through the first world. We got through Olympus. I don't know where the story's going to go from here. I don't know how close to the end I am. I don't know how much longer these scenes are. Some scenes go by really fast, others take like a million years. I would love it if I could finish Amane's route Thursday, but I highly doubt it. I mean, Wednesday, but I highly doubt it's going to happen. Knowing my luck. But anyhow, again, I am finished for now today. My food has arrived. I must eat my own food. Fried chicken, not dog. I'm not an animal, not yet. Not in that kind of position. So, thank you everyone for watching, commenting, and lurking. I appreciate it very, very much. I hope everyone has a great rest of their day, and I'll see you tonight.